The problem is I have to search for
We're
so much
live.
information. Oh, we're live, huh?
I'm sorry.
It's
That's my fault. It's my bad. Hold on. Let me do this. My apologies. That was 100% my fault. That we were not ready. I hit the button.
child. She don't be caring about me, y'all. She do not care about me. I
What do you
love
mean?
her
That's me
anyway.
too. Shoot,
I
that was
love
both
her
of us.
anyway.
Hey, boo.
Hey, boo.
It's been a couple of weeks. We've had a lot going on, traveling and life and all that good stuff. So how's it going? How you feeling?
Oh God. I had the cocoa,
Yeah, I
and
know that. I didn't want to say that. That wasn't my business to tell, but yeah, yeah,
yeah,
we know
it,
you
it
had the
kind of
cocoa,
shut me
honey.
down. It shut me down. Um, but we're nevertheless we're back.
Praise him.
Um,
Praise him.
yeah. Hey,
All right. Hallelujah. All right. Well, unfortunately, even though life was life and for us, the world did not end as
it
it
didn't.
relates to education. So we definitely had some things to get to you guys today. Oh man,
Oh, I
where do we
did.
want to start?
I did. What we were talking about backstage. It was killed. That's why I said I
Okay,
knew
so
I
we don't need
had.
to. Okay,
Yeah,
so we don't need to
I,
touch
I
it
knew
then.
I
All right.
had some subsequent information. But us people, we gonna rally the troops and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna make it happen. Okay. Well, do you want to? I mean, we have two Florida stories. You want to sandwich Florida? You want to start and end with Florida, or what you want to do?
mm, Florida said, "Listen, Governor Hot Wheels, we know you started 24 with a bang. Don't forget we still here. So it's up to you. We can start in Florida. We get Florida out the way. Like we could do Florida and get them out the way.
All right, let's go ahead and let's start with Florida. So we actually have let's start with the don't say gay bill. Let's start with that one only because the second one we have another article that goes along with that. So let's start with the don't say gay bill. Now you guys listen, for those of you who have been rocking with us for a while, we have followed this bill from infancy, right? I know that El Teddy gets a lot of flack because y'all don't know the research that he does, okay? And El Teddy brought this to us when it was in its infancy, all the way through going through the legislation, being voted on. We talked about what that looks like, what the effect is. And so now it looks like a lawsuit and a settlement of said lawsuit. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh boy. Uh-oh. El Teddy, did I
What
lose you?
happened?
Are you here? Can you see me and hear me?
I'm here. I can see
I
you.
don't know. It just blanked out. Can you see me
Yeah, I
and
can
hear
see
me?
you're here. It
Okay.
may be
All
me
right. I
because
can see
my
you and hear you.
internet
What up,
is
Star?
real
Hey,
wonky.
boo.
Hey, Therese. Hey, sis.
Oh, what is going on? All right. It doesn't say my internet is weak. I don't know what's going on. All
It
right.
might be me because
That's
my
Florida.
internet
That's
is.
Governor Hot Wheels.
Yeah, that's Florida. That's Governor Death Sentence.
That's that's.
Oh
I
yeah, it
mean,
might
that's
be
not
Governor
not
Hot
not Hot
Wheels not
Wheels. That's
wanting.
DeSantis.
No, it might be Governor Hot Wheels not wanting Florida to surpass him, and the grand scheme
Maybe
of
that's what it is.
discrimination, racism, and bigotry.
Right. Right. You will not, right? You will not
You would not.
outdo us, sir.
2024 belongs to us.
You will not
You will
outdo
not.
us. I don't know what you think. Right. I don't know what you thought it was, but let me tell you what it's not gonna be. All right, you guys. So thank you, Corey. Thank you, my love. Hey, Ebs, what's up, boo? So let's get into this situation. The link is in the chat if you want to follow along. Let's talk about it. Now, this article is coming to you guys from Local 10. Down in Florida, it is
That's down in
dated.
Miami. That's my
It
local
is
news
dated.
station.
Oh, it is dated March the 12th. Yes, this is coming from, y'all know El Teddy still claims Miami. He just don't claim Florida. So just so you know. All right. This is called South Florida education officials react to the Don't Say Gay lawsuit settlement. Broward County, Florida. Educational officials in South Florida are reacting Tuesday to a lawsuit settlement regarding Florida's so-called "Don't Say Gay" law, which now allows students and teachers to be able to speak freely about sexual orientation and gender identity in classrooms. Why did it have to get to this? Why did that false narrative even start? Broward Teachers Union President Anna Fusco questioned. Nearly 2 years ago, Governor Ron DeSantis signed the controversial Parents' Rights and Education Bill into law. But what critics of the law feared the most was its vague language, which they believe impacted teachers and was victimizing LGBTQ students. So, right after the bill went into effect, civil rights groups filed a lawsuit. No teacher has ever or will ever go into the school setting, into a classroom setting, and say, "Let me teach you how to be gay." Top school officials in Broward County called the settlement a win. To be able to professionally develop our teachers, to give them the right curriculum, to make sure that we are in line with statutes, and making sure that parents are aware that if they are uncomfortable with it, they have an option to opt out. Superintendent Peter, is that Lasita? Look, is that El Teddy?
I'm
Am I
not
saying the
even
person's
looking
name
at
right?
it. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just didn't know if you knew him. You be knowing everybody down there, child. I thought you knew the man. Okay.
Hmm.
As part of the settlement, the state clarified language in the law that prohibits classroom curriculum about sexual orientation and gender identity for younger students and determines what is age appropriate for older students. Max Fenning is the executive director of PRISM, a youth led organization working to expand access to LGBTQ inclusive education. He called the settlement a win win situation for teachers and students. "We are ecstatic about the settlement," said Finning. "This also speaks to the idea that we can talk about LGBTQIA topics in the classroom. That's still a key component of history. That's still a key component of our society. The language does make clear now that the law does not prohibit discussion, conversation, references, or counseling for and about gay students, as well as references in literature and even school projects. As long as teachers have a peace of mind, I think everything would run pretty smoothly," one Broward County student told Local 10 News. In a statement, DeSantis called the settlement a major win, adding, "We are victorious, and Florida's classroom will remain a safe place under the Parent Rights Education Act." Sure. Democratic State Senator Chevron Jones, called
Chevron.
this Chevron. Oh, my bad.
I
Chevron.
know he's a friend of mine. That's how I know him.
See, that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. See, that's what I'm saying. That's my point. That's what I'm talking about. Called the statement a landmark moment, saying in part, classrooms and schools ought to be safe spaces that promote empathy, compassion, and belonging, not fear and uncertainty. Freedom of speech, you should be able to talk about whatever you want. So, yes, I feel like that's good, one student said. Then there's the statement. I'm not going to read this whole statement. It's an 8-page statement that was issued that really just goes through the version, what was changed, so forth and so on. But what do you think? I mean, can it be a win-win? I mean, if how can Ron
um,
DeSantis say we won and the other? You tell me.
you know, what happened is they just carved out portions of the law. The law wasn't struck down, but in the settlement they carved out portions because it got ridiculous. There was there was a case in Florida, and I meant to bring it to this platform, where you had an elementary school child that had same-sex parents, and it was illegal for them to draw a picture of their parents. That's how crazy. They say, "Hey, draw a picture of your family." They bring in a picture of their family, and the teacher is in fear of being, convicted of a felony because all you did was ask the child to draw a picture of their family. And now you're telling what you were doing was telling children to be ashamed of their parents. That's essentially what you were doing.
Uh-oh. I think we lost. Did we lose El Teddy? Is that El Teddy that froze up? Is it somebody let me know if that's me or El Teddy? Did I freeze up? Did El Teddy freeze up? Child, we having some issues with the Wi-Fi ness of it all. Well, I'm gonna keep talking just in case it's El Teddy and not me. Okay. Um, the problem is with this. Okay, it's
I'm
him.
sorry about
Okay.
that. My internet, I told you, it's been doing the most the
Okay. Well,
last
go
couple
ahead.
of
Finish your
days.
statement. I was going to just talk while you were getting it straight.
So what's going on is that's why they're seeing it as a win-win. What some legal experts are saying is because they knew inherently that there were portions of this bill that were discriminatory and things, they can use this as a catalyst to try to send it up the ladder to try to get the whole thing struck down. um you know Pseudo kind of in a admission of, yeah, we did go a little too far, and trying to use that as a catalyst to be the impetus for saying this whole thing went too far, like we're way beyond the pale at this point. Like you said earlier, we've been on top of this. We've talked about the insidiousness of this from the very beginning. We've talked about how horrible this is for students across not just South Florida, but remember we have similar bills in multiple states, in double-digit states at this point. We have multiple bills like this. So the reason that we can see it as kind of Ron DeSantis sees it as a win because he still has the bill on files, but they carved out certain parts. LGBTQ advocates see it as a win because they can use this and start to go to other states, and use this there, hopefully getting galvanizing around maybe one of the states or one of the lawsuits in one of the states, making its way all the way up the ladder, and hopefully getting on the national level there to be a strike down of this type of language and bills of this type.
Because again, that's something that's important for you guys to understand is that part of what we were sounding the alarm about with these bills is that other states were going to use these bills as their blueprint. So part of the good news is, like you said, that they can now advocates against the bill can now take this lawsuit and use that as a blueprint to, at least if you can't get the bill thrown out, you can fine tune it and you can maybe limit the impact and not make it so broad, because like I know, that wasn't an oversight, that law was written as broad as it was. That wasn't an oversight. That was intentional, in my opinion. That was intentional. Let me not speak for you. Let me say for me.
Oh, it absolutely was. It absolutely was
Okay,
intentional.
I thought you agreed with me. I just wanted to, I didn't want to speak for you, but I thought you did agree with me. All right. Well, Governor Hot Wheels. Now what? Okay.
Child.
Oh, I see you. Now what? Okay. I'm sorry. Moving forward, the next story. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. The next story we have is this one is coming out of Indiana. Now, if we were doing a top 10, Indiana's definitely in the top 10. They're not in the top
They're
3. I
in the
don't
top
even
10.
They might even be like if we did
Anytime
a
you
top 6.
anytime you have Mike Pence as your former governor, you make it in the top 10. Let's be clear.
But remember Indiana,
They are
what,
up
what
there.
was that what was that story we were following in Indiana about the I think they were getting really the vouchers. Weren't we following some
Hmm.
stories with Indiana with the vouchers last year? And I feel like we did a couple of
Hmm.
stories on Indiana. Like I said, they're not in our top 3. We know what our top 3 is, but if we were to do a top 5 or 6, I think Indiana's up there. I believe they're up there. Well, let's talk about good old Indiana. Let's see what Indiana got going on now, people. All right. Again, the link is in the chat. I'm going to get ready to read on through it. Let's see what they're talking about. Uh oh, wait a minute. What I do? Oh, I'm going to leave that. Okay. Oh, the internet is interneting today. All right. So this article is coming from Fox 59. It is dated March 11th. Holcomb signs education bill into law, tightens Indiana's ability to hold third graders back. Huh. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb has signed a bill into law that will hold back more third graders if they do not pass the state standardized reading test in a bid to address the declining literacy rates of young Hoosier students. Senate Bill 1, also known
Hoosier.
as Every Child Learns to Read. Yeah, Hoosier. Every Child Learns to Read. Really? That's the best thing y'all could
What?
come up with for the name of this bill is that every child learns to read.
Listen,
Was
you had
ear
No Child Left
was
Behind, so
earmarked
I
early
mean,
into this year's legis. I guess I feel like that's what he was trying to compete with. Every child learn how to read. No child left behind. Child, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. The bill was earmarked early into this year's legislative session as a priority bill for Senate Republicans, with the legislation officially being signed. I'm sorry, so I had a pop up. With the bill officially being signed into law after the Indiana Senate passed it in late February. This meant that the bill landed on the governor's desk for final consideration, which he provided on Monday. The bill was authored by Senator Linda Rogers. The bill was written to improve the reading scores of young students by requiring schools to provide the iRead standardized test to students before they reach the second grade. Students who pass the test will not be required to take the test again. Okay, well, if they pass it once, okay, all right, okay. However, students who fail to pass will receive specialized support to help them increase their reading capabilities. The bill also stipulates that students will receive additional testing and tutoring opportunities before they reach the third grade and take the literacy test. Some students will be held back if they are still struggling to pass the iRead test by the time they finish, according to the current version of the bill. While some exclusions will apply to students who meet specific criteria, the new retention policy is expected to affect the majority of eligible students. Exceptions include students who were already retained while in the third grade, students with special needs or language barriers, and some students who passed the math portion of the test while they continued receiving reading assistance. The bill's stricter retention policy has been subject to criticism by some lawmakers who felt it could be counterproductive toward helping students build their reading confidence if they are prevented from progressing from the third grade. One of the bill's amendments includes a policy that will enable parents to formally appeal a recommended recommendation. Indiana's Secretary of Education, Dr. Kate Jenner, has previously said that nearly one in every five third graders is not reading at their level. Dr. Jenner has also confirmed that of the nearly 15,000 students who couldn't read at grade level in 2023, only around 400 of them were held back. In December, the Indiana's Department of Education announced the state's literacy rates had been in decline for a decade. Nearly one in five students struggle to read, according to most recent iRead assessment results. Okay, I'm gonna let you have
here's
it.
what we this is
I think
this
me, I
is
think me, and, I think me and the doctor might disagree today. So go ahead.
this is us going back. This is just take a this is back to the future. That's what this is. We saw this I want to say what, maybe 20 years ago, really be. We saw a lot of states go to their third grade retention, some as far back as 25 years ago, late 90s, early 2000s. You saw a lot of this sweeping the country. My issue is you have one element to determine whether or not these students are retained, which is this one standardized assessment. And really be knows I'm a proponent of some mechanism or method to assess a person or a student's progress. However, when there's only one mechanism to do that, we have not looked had a chance. And I always get alarmed with these Republican led bills that sound good on paper. It's kind of like when you read the voucher system, it sounds so great when you read it in black and white, but in practice it's very discriminatory. And some of these standardized tests, we know, um, if we do a study on it, we know that there are standardized tests that
Okay, he keep freezing up. Um, Here is where the doctor and I will probably part ways today. I don't have a problem with this at all. I understand the
the
point that
lack
he's making
of
about it. Okay, you have frozen up. So
did I freeze?
start at,
Oh, I'm
yeah, you
sorry.
have frozen up. No, no, no. I was just talking. So start at only one mechanism. That's kind of where you froze up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my problem is the fact that when you have one mechanism with which to assess a student, that's where the problem comes. Because, first of all, we have to look at the efficacy of that test. We have to do a qualitative analysis of that, qualitative and quantitative analysis of each portion of that test. We have to see, is it biased? We have to see, did the state allocate the enough resources in every area so as to make sure and determine that those that all students were provided the same opportunity to excel and succeed there. There's so many factors here. There are no you I saw a lot of states when they saw that it became a problem and you started to have 16 and 17-year olds in middle school because of these laws, they started to say, hey, maybe we need to have another mechanism. Maybe the portfolio method. They some states said, well, you could turn in a portfolio. Some states said we have another mechanism where it's they would do oral, assessments or some type of practicum that a student will be able to do as opposed to the standard rigid standardized testing, because we know standardized testing in a lot of these states are not equitable. They're very biased, they're very discriminatory, and they are done in a way with which to keep those down, to keep the lowest 25 being the lowest 25. I'll stop there and I'll let you go.
So here is where, okay, so let me say this. Here's where we're gonna, I agree, I agree, that there's a inherent bias in any standardized test, in my opinion. But I also feel like we've got to do something. Should there be more than one measurement? Yes. And I do feel like there should be more than one way to measure if students are there. Should there be ongoing supports? Yes. And see, here's my problem. When I was reading the article, it said that if students take the test in the first grade and they fail it, they're not going to be retained, but they're going to get all of these resources to help them be ready to take it by the end of second grade. And and if they don't pass it, then they're going to be retained. Here on, and like you said, on paper, I have no problem with that. I honestly don't. My problem is going to be the execution, because what that's going to trickle down to, and you know it like I know it, what's going to trickle down is what are these supports look, what do these supports look like? How is that going to be implemented? And is it going to be implemented the same way at the largest school district, the more the richer school district and the poor school district? So what's going to end up happening is the richer school districts are going to have the discretionary funds or the PTA that will help and support and give after school tutoring, and the parents are not going to fight back on having their kids in after school tutoring, and they'll even carpool if the school bus isn't available to come back and pick those kids up. Whereas in the poor school districts, they're not going to have the same amount of discretionary funds to pay people to have these resources. And we just going to call a thing a thing. The PTA is not as active or doesn't have as much resources, right, as that. So on paper, I have no problem with that, because as somebody who is still in the school and I'm not aiming this at you, El Teddy. I'm aiming this in general. As somebody who's still in the school on the front lines, these kids are not ready. I'm on the high school level, and these kids do not have critical thinking skills. They don't have the reading skills. They certainly don't have the math skills, and they are not ready for whatever is next, whether that's going to trade school, college, the army, or just going into the workforce. So honestly, I think we've got to go back to some basics. But my problem is your problem. What does that look like on the ground? The bill itself, I honestly don't have a problem with the way it's written. I do have a problem with what that's going to look like on the ground. That's me.
I I think some major things that we have to take into consideration, especially when you start to think about this, is class size is something that is a huge problem, especially when you're talking about um having students learn to read, and you're talking about, oh, I'm giving you all of these resources, so I'm going to give you more books and give you more some what literally do those supplementary resources look like? Are you addressing the fact that we already have teacher shortages? Are you addressing the fact that not only do we have teacher shortages, you got subs in classrooms, you got literally some classrooms ain't no sub at all, you just have somebody, maybe a security staff or clerical personnel, just sitting there. And these, I'll be honest with you, and a lot of times end up being in the low socioeconomic areas. And it's not the student's fault. And you done threw all of these resources there. There's no personnel there. There's literally, you may have an extra reading program that they could do on the internet and implement. There's no personnel there to, to help. And you may end up with, that's a whole another situation. The problem is also, and we talked about this a couple of years ago, really. The problem is, I think that education is failing in how we even approach students nowadays and approach the process of educating on certain levels. What it took to teach a first and second grader 30 years ago how to read may not be applicable today, because they didn't have all of the technological resources. We all talk about how almost babies almost seem like out of the womb they can pick up a laptop, phone, or anything and immediately use that and be able to work that without being taught that. And so if that's the case, we have to, progress to that point where we meet them where they are, instead of having rote memorization and things like that they used to use back in the day. There needs to be a whole totally different approach to how to teach phonemic awareness, and with regard to reading, and prosody, and all of those elements that go into being able to adequately say that someone is able to read. And then once we've determined that, what does this, I really want to know what this assessment looks like. I think one of the most important things to this bill is having a real bird's eye view and seeing what that I read test looks like. Because knowing what that test looks like, if that's the only mechanism for assessment, is going to tell us a lot. And really be, what happens when there's only one mechanism for assessment, instead of truly teaching the how to read, they're teaching them how to take this test.
Well, listen, I agree with you 100%. And we've had that, we could go down that road. Natalie, I have to add you to my list. I'm creating a list of people that, of our subscribers and followers who are educators. I know, Des, and I'm reading your comments in the chat, Des. Des made a good point. Only 17 states require kindergarten. That is a factor. And it is. It is a big factor. Let me say this. I'm a proponent of the hybrid. And what I mean by that is this. I think that I think that 100% online doesn't work for our kids, and 100% the way we used to do it doesn't work for our kids. We have to find a hybrid that works. And that's kind of what I do in my classroom, and I haven't perfected the ratio yet. But we use pen and paper, not every day, certainly not like we used to. Um but of course we use the computer as well. And we were talking about the Great Depression, and I had a student ask me today, and it was a really good question. It was a really honest question, and we were able to have a good conversation about it. He said to me, he said, "How did stocks work before computers?" So that is how these kids think. They don't understand what the world looked like before these things because they've never seen it. And so it ended up being a really good conversation. He was really honest. Like he wasn't being funny. He was like, how did this work if you couldn't go online and you couldn't buy stocks and you couldn't follow your trades? Because he was actually really
And he
knowledgeable in the
never saw
stock
the
market.
videos of back in the day when there was the whole floor was
Right. Well,
filled with papers and paperwork all over the
right.
place.
Well, listen,
Oh man.
you know listen, me, YouTube being my best friend, we Googled it and we looked at a quick little clip. And like you said, we saw the paper and the people on the floor yelling and all of that. And he was like, oh my God, like you could see the look on his face. And like I said, he was pretty knowledgeable of this, of what the stock market was and all of that. And so we talked about jobs. I said, think about it now. So when you guys go to the grocery store and they ring something up, I said, the computer does everything for you. You don't even listen, as a cashier, I don't even have to touch your money anymore. But once upon a time, if you didn't even know how to count backwards,
Mhm.
you couldn't give somebody change.
That's right.
And so we actually had a really good conversation about it. But I think
I
that's where
think
we are. I think
I know Des brought up the kindergarten part. I was going. It's so funny because there was another story I was going to include. This was out of Maryland, and the fact that Maryland had this bill or had something in place where they were going to provide pre-K for everybody under a certain y- economic level, and that ended up falling through, and they're not going to be able to do that in Maryland anymore. And the article talked about the impact that that would have on those students and things like that. So it's so interesting, the kindergarten conversation, and I was going to include that pre-K article as well. I just didn't, but that's interesting.
Yep. So it's a really good conversation. And again, I think that's what I think anybody that's going into writing curriculum or those or you do it for your district, I think those are the things that are interested. I mean, I think those are the things that are interesting and that we need to be looking at is finding that hybrid for our kids. And that's all the way across the board. Like I said, I teach high school. And matter of fact, last week I had an activity with the kids where I pulled out the crayons and the markers and they had to actually decorate. We were doing a graphic organizer anyway, but it was funny because at first they were like crayons, color, and then they had the best time. Even my seniors, who I was like, look, I know y'all are seniors, y'all ain't, they were like, no, we want a color, and they had a really good time with it. And we created the graphic organizer, and sometimes they just want to do like they want to just be kinesthetic.
Bring back my 64 crayon box, okay? 64 color crayon
Listen
box from Crayola.
now I'm gonna
That's
tell you
all.
now
With
really
the little
be.
sharpener in the back. I'll fight you about my little box, my 64
I just
count
ordered
box
that
with the
for
sharpener in
I
the
got that
back.
for my nephew for Christmas. I got that for my nephew for Christmas. That was one of his Christmas gifts. I got him the big coloring
Trying to
box with the
tell
64. I
you.
got him. That's what I got him, child.
And then
All right.
what you got to
I
do
got you,
is
Janae.
no. Then what you got to do is you got to take all the crayons out and color coordinate them so all of the colors to bleed into the other ones like a spectrum, and then put it back in the box in that order because you weren't gonna leave it how you found it. Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Well, Really B's budget is dollar store level. So they was using the dollar store crayons and the dollar store markers. It was
Oh
no Crayola over
no,
here.
no, that you can't do that. It's only an extra dollar or two. You got to get Crayola. You can't do the little cheap dollar store one. There's not the same. There's a very real difference. It is not the same. They don't even offer the same color spectrum. Instead of burnt sienna, they get doodoo brown.
I
Oh
want to read what
man.
Majani said. Hold on. Majani said something a few minutes ago. I want to read it. Majani said, it is an Easter speech time. Now, listen, we all know about the Easter speech time down to the church house, honey.
Hmm.
And Majani said, it amazes me how poorly our youth are reciting and memorizing them. Does anyone have a process on how to use our time at church to help our kids in the classroom? Ooh. Let me tell you,
Well,
can I tell you? Well, let me let you speak first. Go ahead, let you speak first.
I mean, the fact that you said at church is totally different from how it used to be, because you knew your Sunday school teacher gave you that speech, gave it to you, told you to give it to your parents, and you needed to have it. They was gonna have one or two rehearsals. You better not go up there, and your parents practiced it with you. It all really starts at home. It all, and I think that's what we've gotten away from. They want everybody to do everything outside the home for them and not inside the home. Because I vividly remember, you got this good Easter speech, stand up there, let's hear you say it. And if you miss a word, they said, nope, that's not right. This is how you say it. They taught, at least how I grew up, all of my friends, relatives. We talked about that. They taught you part in the home, not at church, at home. You were taught how to stand. You were taught the right posture. You were taught if you were saying a word incorrectly, the right type of diction. Depending on who your mama was, they might have wanted you to sound like the pastor. Or, some people had to, have certain inflections in their voice, but they took pride in, households and families and parents took pride in, my baby is going up there to say the Easter speech, and it's gonna be great. And we may not have had cell phone cameras to record it, but we had them Polaroids, and you took pictures of them up there and all of them things to make sure that it was documented. That was a part of a black household. That was a part of our culture. And then when you went from the Easter speech, you went to being in the Easter play, where you had a part in the Easter play and you had to learn your lines. And there was a whole thing to it, and we've gotten so far away from it. That's a whole nother conversation about how where the black church and black family have really disconnected now, and how it's just not the way it was supposed to be. But it should start at home and not be your responsibility in the church. But
So I'm gonna agree 120%. So I have a short term answer. I think El Teddy gave you the short term answer to say, listen, sometimes we just got to go back to the basics. Um, Rote memory is not a bad thing. I think the problem with rote memory was that back in the day there was rote memory with no critical thinking attached to the rote memory. My mother, who is in her 60s, can still recite the Gettysburg Address. She can still recite The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe. She can still recite Langston Hughes, and she learned it in high school. So there's a place for rote memory when it comes to that. And my mother's a beautiful public speaker. She used to write poetry. But then the problem is, and Dad said this earlier, you have to have the home support, because the problem was the mamas at the church can only do but so much. They can make you stand straight, they can make you recite it, but when you go home and your mama lets you play video games for the next week until Sunday, and then you show up on Sunday morning and you never practiced it again and you never read through it again, that is a major part of what is missing for us as educators. Now, the long term, Majani, that I would say, once you get past this Easter situation, the long term is, especially, I shouldn't say the black church, but I'm gonna say the black church. There are retired educators all up and through everybody's church. There are retired educators and principals and school counselors and speech that they are all up and through. And we've got to get back to building our village. If we get those retirees to ask them, let me tell you, they will jump on it, because there's an element that they miss of it. There's an element when you were a lifelong educator, you're called to that. There are educators in everybody's church that would, I promise you, they will volunteer an hour a week to work with these kids in an after school tutoring. Or now we can just do it online. You can just ask them to log in. But we've got to start building our village again, you guys. We've got to start using our resources. And we've got to get away from feeling like everybody's out to get us and everybody just picking on our kid and everybody just want. No, everybody don't want to see little Johnny fail. Little Johnny just bad as hell, and you need to listen to the old mamas and daddies of the church that's trying to help you. Everybody ain't out to get you. When the school call and say little Johnny not coming to class, ain't nobody lying on little Johnny. I know I went left with that one, but the long term is we've got to start building our village back. The short term is you've got to just get them in, you got to practice, and the parents are going to have to be willing to practice with them. Ravine said that's so true. That's how my chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, all the retirees, educators are working our youth program. Yeah, every every school, every civic organization, whether you are Divine Nine, whether you're Masonic, whether you're Links, whether you're, there are educators all up and through these organizations. And there are a lot of people that are looking for something to do in their spare time, 1 or 2 hours a week. 1 or 2 hours a week. I bet you, if you put out the call, I bet you they'll come. I bet you they'll come. Now
I
that's the
think
long
that
term.
yeah, I know we got another story to get to, but I think that at the pink elephant in the room is the fact that they're
Is it
right
pink
now,
though?
especially it's pink
Can it be a red
with
elephant?
purple polka dots. We'll make it a red
Red.
elephant in the room.
We got Ravine.
Um,
Can we make it a red elephant for Ravine?
okay, for Ravine. Um, the issue is, as especially since COVID, there's a real disconnect between the black community and the church. There is, and that's a whole different conversation. That goes well beyond what we're talking about with Easter speeches and youth programs, because even with that being said, some parents don't want their kids going anyway. Some parents will say, no, I want my child's not going to do that, or I don't need nobody talking to my child a certain way. And there's that whole thing. So anyway, I
Yeah, and
won't go
that's why I
down that
said that's
road.
a whole listen. I just came up with a really good idea. I'm gonna talk to El Teddy about it offline. Right now, El Teddy is in a season of travel. So it's hard to lock him down on weekends because a lot of weekends he's not here. But I had an idea for us to maybe do some things where we open up the panel and bring educators up and we can just talk about some things. Um, but I'm gonna talk to El Teddy offline about some stuff. I be getting these ideas, honey. My execution is where my problem is. The ideas be there. All right. Hey, kiss my cheeks. Mwah, what's up, boo? Um, with that being said, the last article again, we revisit the state of Florida, but we're gonna stop off in Alabama. So I'm gonna read you guys the article from Florida, but I'm gonna let you know that Alabama is sort of dealing with the same thing. El Teddy is in his now Tracy be cutting up. Oh, she be cutting up so bad. Get Tracy. Does Tracy have her wrench over here?
Lord, you gave it to her.
No, I wanted her to have it, but Tracy be cutting up, honey.
Put herself in timeout.
Sometimes we really need to be putting Tracy in timeout. Tracy was cutting up earlier today over on Instagram. I saw her in the chat cutting up. All right, you guys. So this article is dealing with oh shoot, I think I gave y'all the wrong. Hold on. Sorry, y'all. I think I dropped the same link in twice. Yeah, that's the same link I already did. Hold on. Wrong link. No, oh no, yes it did. Yeah. Okay, it's the right link. Okay, sorry. This one is in the NCAA urges black athletes to avoid
No, that's the wrong
Florida
link.
public. Huh?
That's the third grade link.
Huh? The article. Okay, give me a second, y'all, because the article it's the right article up here, but it's the wrong link in the search bar. Isn't that interesting? Hold on, give me a second. I'll get y'all the right link. Hold on, I got it. I got it right here. I got it right here. Tracy says she's being maliciously maligned. Moving forward. The NAACP urges black athletes to avoid Florida public universities over anti-DEI policies. Again, this is another trail of litigation. I mean, of legislation, excuse me, that we have been following. And we, again, we sound the alarm about these things. El Teddy gives y'all these moments where he's so passionate. And then we see a lot of times, as much as we hate to tell El Teddy he's right, a lot of times what he predicts ends up coming. And so here we are. Let me read you guys this article, and then I have another article where Alabama, the mayor of Alabama, well, not the mayor of Alabama, the mayor of Montgomery, I believe, Alabama, is actually saying the same thing. So we're going to read through these both of these articles. Black college athletes should rethink any decision to attend public colleges and universities in Florida. The NAACP advised in an extraordinary letter issued in response to efforts by Ron DeSantis to weaken diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts statewide. The letter, authored by the NAACP's top officials and addressed to Charlie Barker, the head of the NCAA, comes on the heels of last week's announcement by the University of Florida that it would eliminate the school's diversity, equity, and inclusion staff in order to come into compliance with any anti-DEA law signed last year by DeSantis. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you guys, this article is from March the 12th of 2024, and this is coming from NPR. Sorry about that. From racist voting policies to unraveling reproductive freedoms and attempting to rewrite Black history, DeSantis has waged war on Black America, wrote the NAACP Board of Directors Chairman Leon Russell and President and CEO Derek Johnson in the letter. To all current and prospective college student athletes, the NAACP urges you to reconsider any potential decision to attend and compete at a predominantly white institution in the state of Florida. Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at educational institutions typically aim to help create and maintain a student body and a faculty that is diverse in many senses of the word, often with a goal of reflecting the school's home, community, or state. DeSantis and other supporters of the Republican-led legislation say DEI programs are costly and ineffective, and they accuse the programs of being discriminatory. The law signed last year by DeSantis prohibits the state's 12 public universities and 28 four-year and community colleges from spending money on DEI programs. DEI is toxic and has no place in our public universities. I'm glad that Florida was the first state to eliminate DEI, and I hope more states follow suit, DeSantis wrote on Twitter in response to the University of Florida's move to eliminate DEI last week. DeSantis has made cultural issues a centerpiece of his time in office, especially in education. He has signed multiple pieces of legislation designed to limit instruction about race and sexuality. And he has taken aim at sports, including legislation signed in 2021 that bans transgender girls from playing on public schools on public school girls teams. Yeah. The value of Black talent is undeniable. About 17% of the state of Florida's population is Black, according to the Census Bureau. Yet Black students make up 8.5% of students at Florida State and fewer than 5% at the University of Florida. But Black students make up an outsized proportion of college athletes, especially in football and basketball, the two sports that traditionally bring in the most revenue for major athletic programs. Black players represent about half of Division I basketball and football players nationwide, according to the data compiled by the NCAA. Florida is home to two of the largest athletic departments in the nation, the University of Florida and Florida State, both of which rank in the nation's top 15 programs in total revenue, per the USA Today. The value of Black talent is undeniable, especially when it comes to college sports, Russell and Johnson wrote in their letter. At UF and similar institutions, if football stadiums emptied, if merchandise stopped selling, if TV deals fell through, the monetary loss would extend beyond athletics to other university programs. In total, 9 of the state's public universities, field NCAA Division One athletic teams, and 10th plays in Division Two. I'm sorry. Oh, and 10th play in Division Two. Sorry, it's a lot of parentheses. Emmitt Smith, one of the all-time star running backs at the University of Florida, who went on to become an NFL Hall of Famer for the Dallas Cowboys, said he was utterly disgusted by the school's decision and criticized university leadership for bowing to political pressure. To the many minority athletes at UF, please be aware and vocal about this decision by the university, who is now closing the doors on other minorities without any oversight, he said in a statement posted to social media. A handful of other states have taken aim at DEI programs and universities. That includes Texas. Well, we knew it was going to include Texas, child. A sweeping ban that took effect on January the 1st that eliminates DEI offices, diversity training, and most activities based on race, color, ethnicity, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Now, I want to read you guys this other article coming out of the state of Alabama, which is very similar. So let me read you guys this. Now, this is dated February the 24th, but I want to read it to you guys as also. This is coming out of SBL Live. Alabama anti-DEI bill. Birmingham, sorry, I was wrong. It's Birmingham, Alabama, not Montgomery. Birmingham mayor encourages black athletes to avoid Alabama state colleges. An Alabama mayor is calling into question whether or not black Alabama high school students should look beyond the state's public colleges and universities in wake of a controversial anti-diversity bill. In a post, excuse me, in a post to Facebook on Wednesday, Birmingham Mayor Randall Woodfin took aim at Senate Bill 129, which aims to prevent any government institution, including colleges and public schools, from funding diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. The Alabama Senate voted to approve the bill along party lines on Thursday in a 26-7 vote. Although I'm the biggest Bama fan, I have no problem organizing Black parents and athletes to attend other institutions outside of the state where diversity and inclusion are prioritized, he said on Wednesday. The bill, written by Republican Senator Will Barfoot, bars college lecturers from discussing or teaching topics it deems divisive relating to race, ethnicities, nationality, sex, and religion. Wow, I thought college was the place to have all those conversations, but okay. It also has a bathroom clause prohibiting transgender individuals from using school bathrooms that don't match their assigned gender at birth. Alabama has 38 public colleges and universities that enroll around 250,000 students, including the University of Alabama and Auburn. If supporting inclusion becomes illegal in this state, Woodfin continued, hell, you might as well stand in front of the school door like Governor Wallace, referring to George Wallace, the state segregationist former governor who in 1963 famously stood in front of the University of Alabama's entrance steps to oppose its first two black enrollees. All right. I wanted to bring you, I saw that other article and it goes hand in hand. So what do you think?
You're gonna have to give me a second on that. I have thoughts. I do
Okay.
not agree. I am totally not in agreement with the
Okay.
NAACP stance on this. I wasn't in agreement when
Okay.
they said the boycott. What was that last year? And because my problem is, why just carve out Florida? Texas had DEI restrictions well before Florida. Well before Florida. You got pretty much I'm trying to think of a state in the Bible Belt that has not eliminated DEI, that already don't have laws on the books to eliminate DEI from institutions of higher learning. And so to singularly say, oh, just Florida, that's derelict of duties. That's derelict of duties, because Florida is not the only state that's doing that. And then you're not addressing the root issue. You try to carve out in your statement, oh, consider boycotting predominantly white institutions in Florida because you knew there's an HBCU that's a state school. Newsflash, NAACP, they also have to eliminate all DEI. They also have to eliminate all DEI. It also includes all community colleges. A lot of our kids aren't going to 4 year institutions. A lot of our kids need to go, especially in Florida, to the community colleges, which are predominantly white, because in most states you have that system where you do 2 years, get your AA from the community college, and you will automatically be allowed to you'll get, guaranteed admission into the 4 year universities like a Florida State and a UF. And let's be clear, if you look at the statistics of the predominantly white colleges in Florida, they have already been on a steady decline for the last 10 to 12 years. I'm a graduate of Florida State. Florida State, when I went there, had 11% black. It ballooned around 2010ish, between 2008 to 2010. It ballooned, if you can call it ballooning, to around 17% black at that time. Now it's under 9%. It's I think the last statistic I saw was about 8.1% black. University of Florida has almost eliminated black enrollment there. And it's the same for all of them. So you telling black students not to go there, that's already been happening. So you're not even addressing the problem. For the
Child.
mayor of Alabama, public institutions in Alabama, I'm just like, you're not addressing the problem. Where are they going to go? Every state around them: Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, South Carolina, Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Tennessee, Kentucky. Where do you want these students to go? Because all of these states have this going on. And you ceremoniously saying, let's avoid all of the PWIs, that doesn't solve the problem, because now you're going to have a this versus that situation. And that's what they want. They are they're happy to tell, when you tell black kids, don't come over here to, don't go to the PWIs. They're glad you're saying that, because guess who are going to be the students that don't go there? It won't be the athletes. The athletes, I promise you, are not going to stop going. They are not going to stop going, because the athletes that go to these PWIs are athletes that's on the NFL's radar. And in order to get in the NFL, they know they got to go to these PWIs. So the likelihood of them saying, yeah, I'm not going to, I'm not saying you won't have any, but the vast majority of the athletes that you're trying to target not going there, they're going there anyway. They're not going to stop. And what will happen is you will have the great exodus of the traditional student that stops going, black student that stops going, but all of the athletes are still there, and you still haven't fixed the problem. The DEI things are going to still be there. Why not put this effort and energy in saying, we're going to do much more grassroots in terms of voter registration, voter turnout, getting people to go there and change the look of their state legislatures, getting them to change the governors of those respective states. Because you telling black students don't go to PWIs, you would be you essentially are saying to a black student, don't go to any PWIs anymore. And that's just not reality. And I don't think that our ancestors and forefathers and all of those people who fought and did all of those things did all of that for us to say, yeah, we just gonna go to these HBCUs and we're not gonna go to any of the PWIs, because that's exactly what they want. I'm sorry, really, because I feel myself getting triggered, and I might go on a tangent. Go ahead before I get triggered.
So, is your issue that they specifically targeted, I mean, Florida?
My first issue is the fact that you say only Florida, not knowing Florida wasn't the first one to do this and is the only one. And so you're not addressing that issue, because there are multiple states. Now, if you said, here's the list of states that are that have eliminated DEI, and we'd love for you to boycott all of these, great. And I'm not saying that's good either, but it looks like you are being equitable in what you're saying. Like, you look informed, you look as if you know what you're talking about. But when you put something out there and say, yeah, Florida And we know full well this didn't start in Florida, and there's so many other states that are doing this. You just seem ill-informed. And then I don't even agree with the whole notion of telling black students to boycott. So because so what are you going to say? Just boycott all PWIs? Because a state like Alabama has a lot of HBCUs that are state schools. Let's be clear. Florida has FAMU. That's the largest HBCU in Florida. They also, all of these schools also have to eliminate DEI programs. The solution that they
So I
came up
feel,
with
I mean,
that
I
doesn't
feel
make sense to me.
differently. Yeah, I feel differently. I have no problem with the boycott. I do think it should be we're going to boycott all states that have passed similar legislation, and that part I agree with. But I personally, I'm 100% okay, and I say we redirect them to states that have not. Those, I mean, yes, we got a lot of states in the South, but there are plenty of states that have great football programs or basketball programs where these students can go to. And let's be clear, if they're top athletes and they're being recruited by all of the same schools. So just as well as they could go to Alabama, I promise you they could go to Ohio, whatever. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with rerouting them to HBCUs. I'm not saying but I do agree that we should not be focused on one state because let's be clear, all of them are screwing. Like, like they're all which we've been talking about, that they're all passing a lot of the same type of legislation. So that part I 100% agree with you on. But
But
honestly, I'm
my
okay with the
issue
boycott.
really be is I'm taking the athletes out of this conversation because that's a whole different, you know,
But the
caliber of
article was about the
individual.
athletes though. But that's what the
No,
articles are about.
but well, even if I give you the portion about athletes, even within the athletes, among the athletes that's going to the institution, only a small percentage of them are the scholarship athletes. There's not the whole team isn't on scholarship. That's not how that works.
Then
Many
that's
of
all
them
the more
are
reason that they don't need to go.
no. My point that I'm making is many of them are walk-ons. Many of them don't have the means or and things to say.
He done froze
If I
up,
live in
child. He done
Florida
froze up.
and if I live in Florida and every state going as far north as Kentucky, going as far west as Texas is a DEI state, now you're telling these people to uproot themselves and go much higher than the Mason-Dixon line or much further than Texas, which is not just not feasible for the vast majority of students. It's just really not. And I don't know that they're getting to the crux of the issue. They're not addressing the issue. You telling me that we're going to boycott all PWIs? It's just not a that's not a valuable solution to me.
I don't. Again, that's we. That's what we got. That's what we disagree. I don't see the problem. I'm fine with it. Again, my only issue is I think there should be a list of states, and I think it should be those states. But that's my only thing. That's me. Love you though.
That's fine. Hey, we don't always we disagree on a lot of things.
We
But
sure do.
I just think that I think it's I think you should if you want to do that, just come right out and say all black kids go to HBCU, screw all of the PWIs. Mind you, you
I'm
got
okay with that
state
too.
HBCUs, you got state HBCUs that follow the same rules of the PWIs. Same rules. And I'm going to tell
Right,
you
and
what's
that's what
going
I'm
to
saying.
happen.
So what I'm
And
saying, I
no.
hear
Here's what's going to happen to those state schools. No. Here's what's going to happen to those state schools. Those state schools are then because they've already been threatened. We're going to pull funding. We're going to pull funding. We're going to pull funding. And then once you start pulling funding and resources, now these storied HBCUs run into accreditation issues because they're going to, when you start pulling funding, you start pulling all of the things that they need in order for these schools to stay accredited. That's just not a viable solution right there. It's just not a viable solution. That's not possible.
We disagree. All right, you guys. Keep the conversation going. Tell us in the comments if you find this video. There are almost 60 of you guys in here, which for us is a really good crowd. So thank you for being here. If you're new, please hit the like button. So, well, everybody hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate you guys for being here and your input. Again, tell us what you think in the comments. Yana agrees with El Teddy. I'm trying to see. Marty said athletes who could barely read went to college with me. They were on scholarship. Hold on. I'm gonna read a few more of the comments before we get out of here, you guys. Are the states getting rid of DEI, not doing a form of DEI by courting black athletes? Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Let me see a couple of more. Yes, my son is about to transfer to a four-year university from a community college in California. Marty says Emmett Smith spoke out against his alma mater, and that's why Florida is the issue. So, but I agree that we can't just, as much as I love to single out Florida, they're not the only one. So if we're gonna come for Florida, NAACP, if you're gonna come for Florida, you really need to make a list. You need to inform people. I'm sure there are people who are living in states that have passed this legislation that don't even know that. So we need to inform our people, and we need to get, like you say, I do think we need to mobilize grassroots on what we need to do, especially with this being election season. We need to speak with our ballot. But I also, again, I'm okay with the boycott. I'm okay with it. All right, you guys. Dr. El Teddy, any final words before we log off?
Stay vocal, stay vigilant. Listen, these things aren't going away. There's a lot of horrible things happening, and we'll stay on top of these things. We'll certainly let it be known what's going on. I just see horrible things happening to our HBCUs when you start to do certain things, because there are too many HBCUs that are state schools. Think about North Carolina, South Carolinas, many of their HBCU, Alabama. There's so many state funded HBCUs, and these governors have already said we are going to take money away from you. And let's be clear, the alumni of these schools aren't giving the type of money that some of the alumni at the PWIs are giving out. That's just a fact. That's just a fact of the matter. So if those states start to governors say, yeah, we're taking money from you, you are going to, they're not going to sit back and say, oh, you're just going to send all of the blacks to the HBCUs and think that's okay. You forgot that we give you money and we told you we don't want no diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, how you like me now? And then we jeopardize dozens and dozens of HBCUs across the country. And I think that's why I say I just think it's not a viable or feasible way to look at that. We need to continue to look at this story. I'm gonna do my research on this really be so I can look and we can really start to see all of the states that this affects so that we can
Mm-hmm.
really see, because we need to look at things like, okay, here are all of the states that have these laws on the books. Here are how many schools in that state are state funded. Because that's how many HBCUs I should say within that respective state
Mm-hmm.
are state funded because I could in the A&T, South Carolina state funded, Alabama A&M, Alabama state, all state funded, FAMU state funded, Southern state funded. You know that these are huge. These are big. If you tell me, yeah, we're gonna stop funding for these schools, that'll shut. It may get people to donate more. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that may get some of the alumnus to donate more, but I just think that I just don't think that that's a viable option. I just really don't. And then my last point, really last point, hopefully. Then once we get back to these segregated areas and spaces, once we get to these things, especially on the higher education level where we're that segregated and that divided and there's less interaction with others at that critical juncture in your young adulthood, what does that do with the, not that we're not already at a horrible place in terms of our atmosphere and dynamic, but what does that do to further make things worse, for generations to come, and how that'll affect legislations, and how we think about this thing we call diversity, equity, and inclusion, just in life in general, as a American culture. I'm done.
Well, I need you to do that. I need you to follow. I mean, I need you to do that so we can maybe come back and talk about that again.
Yeah, I
And
will. I will.
I would love for us to do that. All right. With that being said, unfortunately, there is no run your mouth today. Dr. El Teddy has his plate is full if it runneth over today. So this is what you're
It
gonna get.
does.
Um, the tribe
I'm
meeting will
sorry, y'all.
happen. Yeah, it's okay. We got you. The tribe meeting will happen today, and it'll take place a little earlier. So y'all meet me over on Really Be TV in about 30 minutes, and we're gonna do our thing over there today. Okay. All right. With that being said, you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to y'all later. Mwah! Peace.
Love
And we're
y'all.
gonna get an intro one of these days. One of these days.